Om. 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 Om Sahanau Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karva Vahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmad Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Se Gurave Namaha. Om Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kama Rupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Karpanya Doshopahata Swabhavaha Prachami Tvam Dharma Samudha Chetaha Yashrehasa Nishchitam Bruhitan Me Sishyasteham Shadi Mam Tvam Prapannam. Om Vang Me Manasi Pratishtita Mano Me Vachi Pratishtitam Avira Virma Edhi Vedasyama Anishtaha Shrutam Me Ma Prahasihi Anena Adhitena Ahoratran Sandadhami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu tadbhaktaram avatu avatu mam avatu bhaktaram avatu bhaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnevihi Shunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyamakshavir Yajatraha Tirairangai Tushtuvagvam Sastanuvihi Veshema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vridakshavaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti na tarkshyo arishthanemihi Swasti na brihaspati dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Aham Vrikshasya Reriva Kirti Prishtam Gireriva Urdhva Pavitro Vajiniva Swa Amritam Asmi Draviragvam Savarchasam Sumedha Amritokshitaha Iti Trishankur Vedanuvachanam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Kakoli. That was very beautiful chanting. It's amazing. All right, so everyone, welcome back to the class where we are going to be talking about the Gunatraya, the three gunas of nature. Why do we have everyone off the video today? Can't see your beautiful faces. Okay, so in last class, what we started off with was we started to understand that there are three, that what is the first part of the chapter, right? Where we are trying to understand what are the characteristics or the qualities of the gunas and how they bind, right? So what has been made very clear from the very beginning of the of this chapter and hold over from the previous chapter, that the three gunas bind. Okay, the meaning of the word gunas is twofold. One is what we generally understand it to be from a Hindi perspective, that it means quality or it means characteristic. But another meaning of the word guna in Sanskrit is a string or a rope or something that binds. Okay. So that is the context within which gunas are actually used in the context of Gita, apart from specifying those three things, right? So the three gunas, the sat, the raj, and the tam, we are trying to understand how they bind, why they bind, what is their characteristic, and why are we doing that? We are doing that so that we can understand them extremely well to be able to go past them. Because it is these three gunas that cause the delusion of us being the body. These gunas are the ones that create that causes the soul to be bound to the body. It is the gunas that create the delusion that we are the body, and it traps us in the body consciousness. Okay. So once we understand the disease, only then we can cure it. That's the purpose. So in last class, we focused on the characteristics and the bandhan prakar, how the thing binds for both satogun and rajogun. What we understood was that satogun, even though it is the subtlest of the three gunas, even that binds, right? It is a subtle guna. It is the guna that is closest to Bhavanji, and yet it binds. Gunas. So and how does it bind? It binds a person by creating attachment to tranquility and knowledge. Okay. Golden rope, but still a rope. Bondage, it will still create. You're still not free, even if you're bound by a golden rope. Now, what happens is that a person who is constantly in Satogun is a person who has a love for tranquility, right? Who has a love for knowledge, and he's always trying to acquire more knowledge and is trying to stay in a space of peace, right? He will love stuff like meditation and other things. Now the problem is that, see, loving tranquility, loving knowledge, all of that is good. That is not a problem. The problem is that inability to withstand an absence of tranquility, inability to withstand, that is the problem. That is quite another, right? It is not the love that is the problem. It is the ability to withstand an absence of those things, which is a problem. Because there is an attachment to the satoguni activities or the satoguni feelings, right? So satogun makes us addicted to tranquility and knowledge. A satoguni person will always want it, constantly want it. Such a person is the person who will become a cynic when he's reading newspapers. He cannot withstand impurity. He cannot withstand adharm anywhere of any kind. Okay, such a person is constantly in a space of, I can do this, I can do that. Why can the other person not do this? He cannot understand impurity. He cannot understand adharm. He has no tolerance for it. You get what I'm saying? So it isn't all like amazing, amazing stuff. The moment you remove that perfect environment from around him, this person loses his calmness completely. He'll go wild. Okay. Now, imagine this, right? So suppose you're doing meditation, right? If you're doing meditation, what happens? You're doing meditation, and then when you start to do meditation first, you get into the satoguni bhav, right? Amazing bhav. You're now in that space. And then comes somebody calls you, right? You get irritated. That's what happens to that attachment to satogun. Okay, as a small example, I'm telling you, right? Now visualize that, right? So you sit down, and then somebody calls you, irritation. Okay, you switch that thing off, and then a bell will ring. You take that also off. Then you sit down to meditate. Okay. If bell is not ringing, there's no phone, then you will hear traffic. You will hear traffic that will irritate you. All right. You block off traffic also. Okay. Get to some place where there's no traffic also. Then you will start to feel the breeze or you will hear the fan. Okay. Take that also off. You will start to hear the clock tick somewhere. Tick, 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 tick. That will irritate you. You take that also off. You will hear some animal go somewhere or you'll feel mosquito going somewhere. Okay. You take that also off. Then you will start to realize that your own body is making noises that will start to irritate you. There's no freedom. That is why Satogun is not an end goal in itself. We have to eventually go past the Satogun also. But being in Satogun, which is why at the first stage, that is our goal, is because Satogun prepares us, gets us in a space which will allow us to take that spring, that leap forward to become Gunatit. Right? So ultimately, we have to become Gunatit because Satogun also binds. It will also keep us in this environment, in this world. Okay? So that was Satogun. Next, we were understanding how Rajogun binds. So Rajogun binds by creating a massive affinity to action. Rajogun, the dynamism, it whips us into action, whips us into action. You see the word being used, whips us into action. It propels us, it creates a compulsion of action. There is no choice. You don't have a choice of not acting when Rajogun is in ascendancy. It will whip you into action. And a person with an unbridled Rajogun is a workaholic. And you will see a very massive preponderance of Rajogun in our lives. In our life and in people around us, the society is built around and celebrates the concept of Rajogun. An unbridled Rajogun in every form. Okay. And how does Rajogun then bind through activity? Now, Rajoguni person, when Rajogun whips you into action, it whips you into action of Sakam Karma. It creates a lot of expectations. Expectation of results from the activity, and it creates the expectation of happiness from the phal, from the results of your actions. It binds through that. More Rajogun, more activity, more attachment, more expectation, which leads to more binding karmfal, which then brings you back into this world. Janam, Mrityu, Janam, Mrityu, Janam, Mrityu. You will never get out of that cycle, the cycle of eternal life and death sequence. Okay? Which means that you are constantly coming back into what is called the dukhalay. You will constantly be in space of suffering. That's how Rajogun binds, right? Rajogun binds by that whole concept of pursuit of happiness that we discussed last time. Okay? That's the nature of Rajogun. And now we will go ahead and understand what are the characteristics of Tamogun and how it binds, right? So Bandhan Prakar and the Lakshan. So let's start with the connection. Visa Lakshya, do you want to read it?
Connection. The Lord now tells how one guna, that one is right. That is the shloka. Right?
Yes, Shloka 8.
Okay. The Lord now tells how one guna predominates others.
8, not 10.
Oh,
Go
eight.
back.
Okay.
Yeah, connection before it.
Okay. Action. The Lord now describes the characteristics of Tamogun and also tells how it binds the individualized self.
Tamastvajnanajam vidhi
tamas vaichvana jam ja
Ajam vidhi.
ajam vitti.
Mohanam sarvadehinam
Moganam sarvadehinam
pramadalasya nidrabhihi
pramaadalasya nityabhi
nidrabhihi
nidrabhihi
tannibadnati bharata
tanne bhadranati dharata
tannibadnati bharata.
tanni baduna nati bharata.
Yeah, let's read.
On the other hand, O Bharata, now tamas to be born of ignorance which deludes all embodied beings, in binds through useless activities, indolence, and sleep. Binding effect of a tamoguna. Tamoguna is a delusive power and is caused by intensified ignorance, not this discerning reality is called ignorance. Ignorance gives birth to tamaguna, and tamaguna in its turn fosters ignorance, just as the seed gives the birth to the tree and the tree produces seeds. Tamaguna completely absorbs reality and instead produce the illusion of what is unusual, unreal. Just as in a merge there is an illusion of water in the place of sand, also what is unrighteous appears to be desirable and what is righteous appears to be undesirable. Truth appears to be harmful and falsehood useful. Such an attitude is the result of delusion. Under the influence of tamas, the discriminant of the individualized self gets blurred, result, resulting in useless activities, indolence, or sleep. Useless activities waste time and energy. Indolence induce deviation from the path of duty. And sleep is not used only to remove fatigue, but to give pleasure. This is called the binding effort of tamaguna.
So tamas binds by causing and creating carelessness in actions. It causes forgetfulness. It causes incapacity to think, incapacity to discern what is right and what is wrong. And this incapacity to discern what is right, what is wrong, creates error in action. And tamogun is not just inertia. Tamogun is definitely inertia. It is heavily present in inertia, right? But tamogun also causes, like I said, there is no discernment, right? If there is no discernment because of its delusive power, it's got in Hindi, the word that is used is moha. It is mohini. It creates moh, and that moh creates delusion. So when you are deluded, the kind of delusion it can produce is extremely high. So, like it says right here, what is unrighteous appears to be desirable, and the righteous appears to be undesirable. For example, if one of the manyata in our and then it says truth appears to be harmful and falsehood appears to be useful, right? One of the manyata in our society has been here, you have to do certain things to get some results in this world, even if they are not in the prescribed actions. And these are considered okay to do. Everybody does it. You have to do it. If you don't do it, you will not get certain results. These are tamoguni. This is caused by tamogun. Preponderance of tamogun in the society. Preponderance of tamogun in our thinking. Okay, it creates that heaviness. Another way tamogun is present in our life is when you see yourself resisting change. That is tamogun. When we see, especially when we see resistance to change in our habits, change, inability to change in your habits, especially the wrong habits, being attached to previous ways of being, this is all tamogun. Another thing that tamogun does is, it does beautifully, is it will cause us to come up with really amazing reasons as to why our bad habits must continue, right? Why they are extremely useful. For example, if I'm attached to a particular, if I'm attached to anything, like, I may be attached to food, I may be attached to drinks, I may be attached to watching TV, I may be addicted to social media, I may be addicted to gossiping, I may be very addicted to gossiping about my mother-in-law, right? And then I will find all kinds of reasons why all of these activities are amazing, even though they are complete pramad. They create a waste of time. They create a waste of energy in so many different ways. Okay. We may be addicted to gossiping about our boss. We may be addicted to, wasting time going out for in the name of socialization. Right. There is nothing wrong with any of the activities per se. Right. You can, but there is when there is tamogun, the reason is all wrong for doing all of these things, and the way we do it is all wrong. And that is where where they create waste of energy and time. They lead you nowhere except downwards. Now, how does tamogun bind? The tamogun binds by making sure we don't change. And tamogun binds by creating all of the errors in action because of non-discernment, because of carelessness, because of forgetfulness. To a person who's steeped in tamogun, you give him 5 things to do, 2 he'll forget to do, not find time to do. The rest 3, he will create an error in doing those also. He'll do 3 things and even they will not be done perfectly. Okay. So that is how tamogun binds. It will create wrong actions on your part, which will then, of course, create a lot of results in its way. Okay. Now, when we are born in a state of tamogun. When a child is born, he spends 18 hours sleeping. He wakes up only to drink milk and then go back to sleep. Right? We are born in tamogun. As we grow, nobody goes from, a child does not go from tamogun to satogun overnight. Right? There is no, now that we are reading and we start to see things in us. Right? It's important to understand how we go from where we are to where we need to be, which is that we all need to go towards being in Satogun 24 hours. So how do we go? First thing to recognize and understand is that this nature and the laws of nature, which means Bhagwanji, does not approve of revolutions. He approves evolution, gradual evolution. Revolutions don't last. Evolutions last. They take time, but they are sure and pakka. Okay. So tamogun is where we are born and where we stay. And from tamogun, we have to go up the curve. So from tamogun, we go to rajogun. From rajogun, we go to satogun. There is no way for you to overnight go from tamogun to satogun. Now, when we start to observe these things in our life, you will realize that you're not always tamoguni, you're not always rajoguni, you're not always satoguni. Right? There are parts of your life which are quite steeped in tamogun. There are parts of your life that are steeped in rajogun, and there are parts of your life that are steeped in satogun. All right? You have to recognize those parts, and then you have to activate them accordingly. So wherever you find yourself being steeped in tamogun, what is the first thing to do? The first thing to do is to get them. See, for example, now this is very important to learn, right? For yourself and for others. Day one, when we started Gita, first chapter, second chapter, third chapter was not about meditation. Right? It was not about meditation. It was about karma yoga. You tell a tamoguni person to go and meditate, he would love it. Inactivity. Lie down and stay quiet. Don't do anything. Awesome. That's exactly what I do all day long. Sometimes tamoguni activity and satoguni activities can look very much alike, especially when satogun involves no activity. Okay. So we will now go deeper as we move forward. We will start to go deeper now that we've understood at a high level how to recognize, discern, and how to move from one guna to another. How to get past them, how to utilize them, how to recognize them, utilize them, and move past them. Use them where it's necessary, and then drop them when it's not necessary. Okay? Let's go to the next shloka. Asmita, do you want to read?
Sure. Now, connection. Now the Lord describes separately the effect of each of these gunas on a human being.
Sattvam sukhe sanjayati,
Sattvam sukhe sanjayati,
raja karmani bharata,
raja karmani bharata,
jnanamavritya tu tamaha,
jnanamavritya tu tamaha,
pramade sanjayatyuta.
pramade sanjayatyuta. O Bharat, O Bharata, Sattva makes one cater to happiness, Rajas makes one engage in actions, and Tamas, shrouding the correct perception, induces useless indulgence. The different impulsions of the gunas. The importance of this shlok lies in the fact that it helps in a correct assessment of the guna, which may be influencing the tendencies of a human being at any time. When there is peace and happiness in the mind, it would be due to preponderance of sattvagun. Feelings of peace and happiness comes from worship, meditation, selfless service, and similar other righteous acts. It impels a human being towards self-realization. When Rajoguna predominates,
Just pause
yeah,
here. So the first part is Satagun, right? The feeling of happiness. But out here, it's very clearly underlined. This is the feeling of happiness which comes from worship, meditation, selfless service, and other righteous acts, which means the feeling of happiness which comes from following the principles of Gita, not the feeling of happiness that you get from maybe craving an ice cream when you have an ice cream, or the feeling of happiness of external sensual pleasure, right? Classify the difference. There is a peace and happiness that comes with Sataguni activities, and there is a sensual pleasure and happiness which comes with external worldly activities.
It's pleasure.
So it's a difference. Just note the difference here. Okay. Yeah, you continue now.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
So here the person, because there is preponderance of Satogun, so there is knowledge, right? Knowledge means I know what is right. Okay, I know what is right and I will do it. So your actions, as Abhinav said, are the ones that are scripturally correct. Satogun does not mean that you're just sitting in meditation either, right? You're not like, cut off from the world and sitting in meditation. Selfless service and other righteous acts. So you are in action. You are in action. But the type of action is what? Nishkam karma. Nishkam karma. Okay? So nishkam karma, your attitude is right and your action is right here. This is when you are, and when you do all of this, the result is, see, they both are intertwined, right? When you're in Satoguni Bhav, your attitude is right, your action is right. And that creates a feeling of peace and happiness. But when you started, you already were in a space of Satogun, so you already were in a space of peace and happiness. So Satogun creates that, and being in that action, make sure that you stay in Satogun. If you stay in Satogun, then you're constantly in a space of peace and happiness. Okay, Nishkam Karma. For us, it means Nishkam Karma, constant space of Nishkam Karma. And then we also do certain activities that will make sure that we are charged enough and we remember enough to not get caught in the glamour. Hence puja, hence meditation, hence swadhyay, hence satsang. They are not end in themselves. They are tools. They are tools and frameworks that will allow us to remember and give us the energy, make sure that we are constantly in a space of doing nishkam kar. That's what we are supposed to engage in this life. That's the space we are all in. That's the kind of life we all have. That's what is expected of us. Nishkam kar. Everything else is a way to make sure that throughout the day, we stay in the space of Nishkam kar and we don't slip down in a space of Sakam kar. Or worst case, come down in a space of wrong actions. Okay? Let's go ahead.
When Rajogun predominates the thinking of the mind, then it runs towards actions and the pleasures which are expected to follow from them, and which are to be experienced in this world or the hereafter. These actions may be carrying scriptural sanction, but when done for fulfillment of desires, they bind one to a succession of births and deaths. The various efforts and exertions involved may also be righteous in themselves, but when rajas predominate, the object of undertaking them is not performance of duty alone, but fulfillment of desires.
So now when Rajogun predominates, okay, when Rajogun predominates, you're doing the same set of actions. Their actions are right, but the purpose and the attitude is not Nishkam. It is Sakam. Okay, when there is Sakam Karma, when your attitude is that of I want something and hence I'm doing it, not because it is the right thing to do, it is my duty to do so. It creates what? It creates attachment to the end result. I'm doing something to attain something. So then the result obviously becomes extremely important for me. So I get attached to the end result and an expectation of pleasure and happiness that will come from it. Okay. So this is when we are in the space of rajas, is when we have thoughts like, I deserve this. Right? When I have thoughts like, oh, I did so much for the other person. I did so much. I was the one who did everything to get this project to a completion. Right? So I did this. So I obviously deserve it. No, I'm not asking anything that I don't deserve. I'm only asking results of what I deserve. Right? These are all Rajoguni bhav, Rajoguni thoughts. Actions are right, but the attitude becomes wrong. I know what I like and I will go and do it. The first one was what? I know what is right and I will go and do it. In Rajogun, I know what I like, I know what I want, and I will go and do it. There are lots of, so your yagya is not that for the world welfare. Your yagya is to get something. Right? Now, Upanishads and Ved, all our Ved Purans, they are filled with things you can do to attain something. Do all of this, do ABCD to get a baby, do ABCD to get your promotion, do ABCD to get whatever, right? Now, obviously today they are, people don't even like do it properly. They just think like, I'll sit in somewhere, say 5 mantras and do this thing and then I will get something. Obviously that is all like nonsense, right? But Ved and Upanishads actually have proper ways. If you actually want something in this world, understand what rules govern those things, and then utilize those rules correctly, do certain actions, and they will actually get you to get these things, right? So Sakam Karm ke bahut sare prescriptions are given, okay, in our Vedas, and for a reason. We'll understand the reason why they are given in the first place, right? So so those Sakam Karma actions are given and we will follow those, right? So when we are doing that, then we are in a space of Rajogun. This is all of this is for us to recognize what is the preponderance, what is our tendency in that moment. When we are in a space of Rajogun, it will eventually cause, because of the attachment to an expectation of result, expectation of certain happiness, it will create in its wake anxiety and fear. Always. Always. You cannot have anxiety and fear without Rajogun being in ascendancy. If at any point of time in your life, at any moment, you're experiencing fear, you're experiencing anxiety of a certain result of something happening, not happening, anxiety of, something that you don't know about, know that you are in a Rajoguni space. You're not in a Satoguni space. So that's Rajogun. Let's go ahead.
So one second, sorry, Tohina. What would be the English word for Nishkam?
Selfless service. Selfless or unattached action. When there is no expectation of action. When there is no expectation of pleasure from any action that you do.
And so okay, got it. But so our goal is self-realization, and if Satogun, here it's written that Satogun impels a human being towards self-realization, then why is Satogun bad? Why should we not stay there and go beyond Satogun?
Because Satogun will prepare you and impel you towards self-realization, but it does not get you to self-realization.
So
Think of it as a ladder. Okay, your lowest ladder, the lowest step on the ladder is Tamogun. The second step is Rajogun. The third step is Satogun. Okay, so you have to climb up. You have to go from Tamogun to Rajogun to Satogun. But staying on Satogun still keeps you on the ladder. You have to cross the ladder to get into the room that is on top, which is the Gunatit level, for you to actually have self-realization. You remember when we talked about that this world is entirely composed of two components. There is the Kshetra and the Kshetragya, the nature and the consciousness, right? Self-realization is when you are pure consciousness, Krishna consciousness, right? This piece here, the consciousness, the Kshetragya, the God, as we call it, all of these same different words for the same concept. It is gunatit, it is beyond the gunas. Nature is made of 3 gunas. So as long as you are in any of these gunas, you're still trapped by nature. Okay, you've not gone past it. And while being in nature, while being in Satogun, you can understand a lot. There's a lot of knowledge. So you can understand a lot about consciousness, about God, about who He is. You can understand a lot. You will still not experience it. For experiencing it, you will still have to go past that Satogun. You'll have to let the ladder go to become Gunati. Because that knowledge, every knowledge that you get, even in the space of Satogun, is a knowledge where there is separation of the 3. There is knowledge, right? There is knowledge, the object of knowledge. There is the process of knowledge, and there is the knower. Even in Satogun, all the knowledge you are acquiring of self-realization is in a space where all 3 are different. The knower hasn't become the object of knowledge. The knower that is me hasn't become the object of knowledge that is God, which is when we call self-realization. But I have acquired enough knowledge to know what this process feels like. I know everything, and I have become eligible to potentially receive self-realization. But to receive self-realization means what? Means that the knower, the process of knowledge, and the object of knowledge become one, which is Bhagwanji itself. We merge in him. To merge in him, we have to go past the Prakriti, which means we have to go past the Satogun as well. And as we discovered in Shloka 5, right? What was it? 5? Shloka 5, where we understood that that Satogun also binds. It keeps us in this world, in this nature. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's go ahead. Smita, let's go ahead.
When the mind is under the influence of tamas, the discernment of what is proper and what is not.
It's like her connection is not stable.
After class.
I think, Smita, your connection is not stable.
I said 5 minutes.
Can you try going off the video and read again?
Probably tamas, the discernment of what is proper and what is not is completely lost. The result is that duty sleep
Smita, I think the connection is not strong and we can't hear you properly. I think I'll get someone
Oh,
else to read this paragraph. If you don't
sure,
mind.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Smita,
sure.
would you please read with us for us? Nana, can you read for us?
When the mind is under the influence of tamas, the discernment of what is proper and what is not is completely lost. The result is that duties are neglected and useless and harmful activities are undertaken. Sleeping is indulged in not to remove fatigue, but for comfort, even to the extent of craving for intoxicants and sleep-inducing drugs.
So when tamas is on the preponderance, then the action itself is wrong, right? So in the first one, Satogun, attitude is right and action is right. When Rajogun is on the preponderance, the action is right, but the attitude is wrong. When we are in Tamogun, the attitude is already wrong. My actions are also wrong. Okay, I don't even know what is the right thing to do. All right. So actions are wrong, which is why we will end up doing all kinds of wrong things, right? Would the under the influence of tamogun, what is unrighteous appears desirable, and righteous seems undesirable. Truth appears to be harmful, and falsehood appears useful. So under the influence of tamogun, one, all the kind, you don't just sleep. So sleep is important, right? Tamogun is important when it is done for the right purpose with the right path, right? So if you sleep, for example, tamogun is inertia. You need inertia, you need rest. Rest is the bedrock of all useful activity. Okay, but when you are resting for the sake of resting, not as a reason because I need to rest so that I can be in my Nishkam Karm tomorrow, right? When I'm resting for the sake of resting, I want to continue in that space of rest for longer periods than what is necessary. It is harmful for my body. It is harmful for my mind. I will then consume alcohol or other intoxicants to release tension, right? Today, the society is alcohol crazy. You can only realize it when you step away from that space. And how much alcohol is considered the right thing to do for socialization, for networking. When you're steeped in that, you don't realize it, like a frog in boiling water. You think it's the right thing to do, and you cannot have a party without alcohol. You cannot enjoy, you cannot have deep conversations without alcohol. These are all tamoguni thoughts, but you will not realize it until you step away from it. And alcohol or other such crutches, marijuana. How many places I read about marijuana must be, why should it only be medical? It should be made free. California is amazing. Thailand is amazing because you can smoke weed. Singapore is crap, right? Because the number of conversations I've heard on it are ridiculously high. Almost on like every third conversation, whenever you bring this up, is about this, right? Freedom of choice. Freedom of choice, yeah, but like, where is your buddhi right now? Right? Do you even know what is the right thing to do? And then your tamoguni intellect will create very amazingly eloquent reasons as to why it is the right thing to do. Just a second. ये green वाला है, ये this is for the kitchen. हाँ, white वाला, plain white is for the cabinets. Thank you. Plain white, yes. Thank you. Yes. So though that is what happens under tamas. Okay. Sleep inducing drugs. Now, sleep inducing drugs may be given under the supervision of doctor for giving you sleep because your body needs it. Somebody is really hurt. Somebody's undergone operation. You need some kind of intoxicant to allow the person's body to sleep so that he does not experience pain, right? Under the supervision of doctor, that's fine. But when you start popping sleeping pills, then there is something not right. Okay. And if you understand that, but like that is one part, right? Okay, there's a problem I need to solve for. But constantly saying, oh, that's the only way to sleep, and casually popping sleeping pills in is a is another way for you to recognize this is tamoguni behavior. Okay, these are things that I'm talking about because one that is written here, but also things that we see in Netflix series. How many times I've seen some of these kind of things which are kind of almost accepted, especially in Western society.
So
right?
let me just add here, right? The nature of tamagun, and to a certain degree less in rajagun, but definitely not in satagun, is because it is inertia, as Tuhina said. If you indulge in it once, it gives you more inertia to do it again and again and again. And it's like a snowball effect. So if you're, and that's the slippery slope of being ignorant about things, which is why we acquire knowledge so that we can do the right thing, right? The more ignorant you are, the more wrong decisions you'll make, which will fuel further wrong decisions. So the one wrong decision or the one tamoguni decision that you may be indulging in today, if you can stop that one, then you will see 20 more that you were not even aware of. If you keep justifying that one, then you won't even be aware of the other 19 that are lurking because you're ignorant. It's a blind spot. You don't know. You're not aware of it right now. It's just a habit, right? I'll give you an example, right? When people are tired, sometimes we're like, oh, let's go watch TV. Let's watch a couple of shows or TV, etc. But if you actually observe, when you're tired, your body is tired, your mind is tired. For it to be refreshed, you either need to sleep or you need to relax or you need to be doing like nothing. TV, your body is still, but your mind is fully engaged. At the end of that 1 hour or 2 hours or whatever, you rarely feel relaxed. You wake up and you're like, you know what I mean? I'm even more tired because your mind has not got a break. And that's an example of a tamoguni activity that we've come to accept in our daily life. Oh, relaxing matlab Netflix and chill.
Not just accept, but actively promote. Relax karna to chalo, let's just Netflix, right? Netflix and have ice cream on top of that. I actually saw there's a Ben and Jerry ice cream, which is titled Netflixed. Some peanut butter flavored ice cream. I was like, wow. It's become that accepted in our culture. There's a Ben and Jerry ice cream called Netflixed. You're supposed to do this. Dude, this is like the way to really chill in a very amazingly luxurious fashion. This is the thing to do. Yeah, Bhagesh.
Okay, so like we discussed in Satogun, the happiness should come from selfless service, meditation, and not from the worldly desires, right? If the happiness or the pleasure is coming from worldly desires, it's not even Satogun. But since we are in this world, which is material, where is the line, where to draw the line that, okay, I can do this for my worldly pleasure, it is okay to do, or I shouldn't do.
Okay. So I'll give you a couple of examples. End of the day, the discernment of where to draw the line in every single activity with all its like so many variations, right? That I won't be able to cover. But that discernment will come internally once we start implementing it. धीरे 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 धीरे. In certain cases, हमें नहीं समझ में आएगा. But as we keep doing it and we sharpen our intellect, start to become clearer and clearer where that boundary is hazier and hazier or subtler and subtler. Okay. I'll give you some examples where it becomes very clear. For example,
so just
sleeping.
Before you give example, right? There are every action you decide on that action based on the purpose of the action. So starting point always is the purpose with which you want to act on a particular thing and what bhav that you do it with. Okay. Now, how do you decide purpose? So purpose can be, I want to relax. Netflix allows me to relax, so I relax. Right? But this is where your experiential knowledge, scriptural knowledge should be the guiding light for purpose. Any action that you do should eventually help you do your duties better. And there is no harm in relaxing. There's no harm in going out and watching a movie, going to a cinema, watching TV at home. There's no harm in it. But everything has to be defined by that purpose and that boundary of, oh, I'm in Satagun while doing this versus I'm in Rajagun versus I'm getting into Tamagun. Now Tuna can give the example.
Yeah. So, like Abhinav said, very, very relevant interjection here. Everything that you do, okay, everything that we're going to talk about here, the most important thing is, see, the subtler something is, the more important and more powerful it is. That's very important thing to always remember. That's why we say brains are always will overpower brawn. Correct? Brain over bronze. Always. Even though at a gross level, it feels like somebody who's extremely powerful, tall, large, muscular person will overpower a lanky, intelligent guy. Right? On the face of it, it seems true. But actually, a person, a lanky guy who's very brainy, will always overpower long term over a brawny, muscular guy who has no brain. And you see this on a daily basis, on a daily experience basis, because we as human beings, we are neither intelligent, we are neither the fastest species on the earth, nor do we have exceptional senses of any kind. We are not very good seers. We are not very good. We don't have very good sense of smell. We don't have very good sense of hearing. None of those things. We can't run fast. We can't overpower. We don't have muscular strength. And yet we are the dominant species because we have the largest brain. So with this brain, we have been able to subdue the largest of the animals out there and make the nature do what we want. Okay. And now, so subtle is stronger than gross. Okay. So activity, then what is subtler is thoughts. Thoughts are subtler. And even so, things have to keep getting subtler and subtler. So let's go to the subtlest level that we can today, which is our level of thoughts and purpose. And then emotions, bhav. If we make sure that these two things should always be in Satogun, then the activity will take care of itself. The activity of sleep can be a tamoguni activity. Yes, the activity itself, because of inertia, is important, right? It is a tamoguni activity. However, the purpose and the bhav with which sleep is done will determine whether it is the right thing to do or not. After a hard day's work, you've been out all day, you have to come back and take a shower and then, relax your body and mind and go to sleep. That is extremely important. Because if you don't do this, the body will feel tired and tomorrow you will not be available to do your own duty. So the bhav is, the purpose is to relax the body to be able to do your duty the next day. Then a tamoguni activity being done with a satoguni bhav is the right thing to do. With a satoguni purpose and satoguni bhav. Okay, is the right thing to do. But if you are sleeping for the sake of sleeping, I just don't want to go out and meet people because I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling shame. I don't want to go out and meet people. I'm feeling lazy. I don't want to host people in my house. So I'm going to avoid the world. I'm just going to sleep. I don't want to deal with my homework or some duty that I'm supposed to do. And so I'm just going to chill in bed. Right? That is avoidance. Purpose is wrong purpose. The bhav may be wrong as well. You're doing it out of shame, fear, procrastination. So then that lazing or sleeping is a tamoguni activity being driven by tamoguni purpose, tamoguni bhav.
So purpose, yes, but sometimes some small things doesn't have any purpose. Like there's no purpose. Like let's say if I want to buy a dress, I can buy a normal dress, which is like purpose is to, let's say, to be presentable, like normal presentable, or to like cover my body and to meet, I can buy a normal dress, let's say some cheap dress, whatever, or the bare minimum, whatever I can, versus I buy a very expensive or very, very beautiful dress, very nice dress, which I like. It will be for my pleasure. So the purpose is like no purpose behind this, right?
So that's a very fascinating question, right? The purpose of why you buy a very fancy dress, suppose a very big brand that you don't really need, but you're like, I really, really want it and I want to wear it. It's okay for you to act on it. But it's very important what you're doing right now is to be aware that this is your vasana. It is not your requirement.
No.
When
One step behind with that, Abhinav.
Vedant, his two sons.
You have to think about, see, first of all, everything must have a purpose. If we are doing things purposelessly, then we are acting out of tamogun. Okay. If I am going out and I see a dress and I'm mindlessly shopping without knowing why I'm shopping something, it could be a dress, it could be something small, like, I don't know, whatever, right? It doesn't matter whether it's $1 thing or $100 thing or $1,000 thing or a $10,000 thing. That is immaterial. If I am shopping mindlessly out of habit, because I'm out, I see something I like and I pick it up, right?
But what if I'm mindful, but I know that I want that?
Yeah. So then if you're mindful, you know you want it. That means you are, first of all, acting out of awareness, right? And when you're aware, then you know why you're buying it. You want it for a reason, right? You want it for a reason. That reason could be anything. Then become aware of what the reason is. And that reason will determine whether your shopping is a satoguni activity or a rajoguni activity or a tamoguni activity.
No, shopping is just one thing. There are so many such things which we do on daily basis in this world right now, in today's world.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
every shopping, every activity that we do is a Rajoguni activity of dynamism and going in purchasing, right? When you become aware, oh, this is my vasana, I like to do it, okay, I will do it. If that dress 10 days later gets spoiled by your helper, by your, you go to wear it in an event, some kid drops some orange squash, uska daag nahi, uska stain doesn't go away, and then you get really angry about it, then you know very, very quickly that my satagun, it was never a sataguni bhav, it was a tamoguni bhav or a rajoguni bhav. A sataguni bhav would be what? That someone spoils the dress 10 days later, Bhagwan ji ki ichha thi.
Okay, but wait a minute, Bhagishri, what is the question here? What is the question?
Question was like, what pleasure is okay and what is not. So we talked about the purpose, but some things, like some normal activities which we do, they don't have any purpose. Like, let's say buying a $50 dress versus a $300 dress, let's say, or even for money, let's say if I earn a sufficient amount, which is like okay for me to live a normal life, then why should I even go for higher, why do I even ask for a higher salary package, or why should I even, should I get the feeling that, oh, I want to earn more? Then.
So, Bhagishri, I love your question because it is important for us to know, and you're absolutely right. This is the space that we are all in, that we do a lot of things mindlessly. We do, like, I think a very large part of our lives is led mindlessly. It is not mindfully led. Most activities we do are not mindful. We are not aware of why we are doing it, how we're doing it, with what purpose we are doing it. Okay, most of our life is led in that fashion. So there is no purpose. There is no purpose.
There's no purpose.
In
Yeah.
most activities.
Yeah.
And that awareness itself is a phenomenal starting point. Gita tells us, and every other thing that you will do, which will bring you closer to truth, will tell you to become aware. To become aware and to do everything with a huge amount of purpose, with the right purpose, not huge amount. Do it with the right purpose. Once you start to become aware that you are doing a lot of things mindlessly and you're doing a lot of things purposelessly, you will start to ask yourself, why am I doing it? So why do we continue to do things mindlessly and purposelessly? Because there's tamogun. Tamogun is inertia. physics mein inertia is represented where? A body in motion will continue to be in motion unless an external force acts on it, right? This is a basic law of motion. Basic law of motion, basic law of inertia, which is tamogun, which is inherent in this world. Okay? So you will continue to, so you are in a space of tamogun when you're doing things because they have always been done before, or because you are not thinking about it. Without thinking, when we do things, we are in a space of tamogun. When we are doing things out of instinct, right? Somebody does something and I react back. When I'm reacting, when I'm in a reactionary space, I'm in a tamoguni space. Because it is acting out of habit, out of inertia, out of always being done. You get what I'm saying? So, and you're absolutely right. Most things are done like that, which is a space that is not the right space to be in. And that is why I said that in this world, the preponderance is that of.
Then what do we even do if
And then you will start to realize that when you start to question the purpose, you will realize how many things out of your life will get washed away. So, boss, I am doing all of these things, wasting my time, wasting my energy, and wasting my resources of all kinds, money and everything else that goes alongside it. I'm wasting so much of it in so many activities that have no purpose. And if I conserve my energy, I conserve my resources, my money, my everything gets saved. And I'm automatically going to be in a space of more calmness and more peace simply by removing. And you will realize that this whole journey of self-realization, Bhagyashri, is not about acquiring new things. It is about giving up. You will give up a lot of activities. You will give up a lot of desires. You will give up a lot of things. You will give up a lot of thought processes that you thought were correct. You will give up more than you will acquire. You will give up. It's a matter of giving up. First, you will give up gross things. Then that giving up will become subtler and subtler and subtler until you get to a space of nothingness is where you will find him. But that's a very subtle thought. Forget about that. At a more gross level, just become aware of how many things we are doing without any purpose and start questioning. Maybe you will find that there was once a purpose, and that purpose was a satoguni or a rajoguni or a tamoguni purpose with which you did it. And today you decide purposefully, does this activity, does this thing, does this emotion, does this behavior, does this habit, does this thing today have a reason to be in my life? If it has a place to be in my life, I will hold on to it with the right purpose today because it still makes sense to be in my life. Or maybe that thing, that emotion, that activity, that thing has become redundant because my life has changed. This is tamogun, which causes us to hold on to past thoughts. You know, when you go to a psychologist and he starts to like really go deeper into your psyche, he will realize that, you know, most of us are acting as if we are still 5-year-olds because something happened to me as a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old. And I created a way of being which allowed me to deal with that circumstance. And today it is no longer relevant to me because I'm not that 5-year-old, I'm not that 10-year-old, I'm not in that circumstance, and I still continue to behave every time an external influence comes, which is similar to that trigger. I will still become that 5-year-old and act out of habit. This is tamogun. Good. So examples I've given you right now are very vast type of examples, gross to subtle, for you to recognize how tamogun drives our life today. All the rajogun also that we do is actually driven by tamogun because I'm acting, I'm reacting. That reaction requires dynamism of rajogun to act. Yet the purpose is tamogun. The purpose in the bhav is tamogun. How is it tamogun? Because I'm not thinking before acting. I'm doing it out of habit, out of action, out of reaction. I haven't purposefully created why I'm going to act in a certain way. I just react. That is tamogun. I go out with friends for a lunch or dinner and I'm in the habit of window shopping. And when I see something, I just randomly pick up because I can afford it and I like it. Tamoguni shopping. Okay, evenings, mindlessly, I'll sit down and watch something. Because Saturdays and Sundays, that's what we do. There is no other way to entertain ourselves. Right? Now, I'm not labeling watching TV as a don't do activity at all here. Okay. I'm using that example simply because most of us do it mindlessly, and that whole mindless way of doing things, purposeless way of doing things makes it a tamoguni activity. And most of us go to Netflix as a mindless, purposeless activity. Okay, that's why I'm using it. But there you will find once you start to do it, you will do it more purposefully and more mindfully. It doesn't matter what that activity is. It can become a satoguni activity. So there should not be that much focus on the activity and action as much as the purpose and the bhav. The moment you capture purpose and bhav, the activity will take care of itself. The moment your purpose and bhav are satoguni, there are certain activities you will realize I don't want to do them because there is no purpose. And there are things that you will want to do anyway. Make sense?
Okay.
Kapil.
So I have one question coming from what Bhagyashree said. So sometimes you do acquire things, not because you are doing it mindlessly. Like Sanchita is there and she also knows, like both of us are very passionate about about supporting weavers in India. So many times I will just buy a sari because I know the percolating effect of that is it's going to really generate some kind of support for weavers around. Now, in doing that, of course, because I feel that you obviously because the resource is there. However, I'm not doing it to flaunt, because if I would have done it to flaunt, I would have showed off. I have spoken in my friend circle, nothing like that. Very quietly, that's one of the way I do it. But every time I do that, Tuhina and Abhinav, I send up that gratitude to him, saying that you gave me the resource to do it, and thank you for that. Does that not negate and take me into a more satoguni, make that a satoguni activity and not keep it at kind of a tamoguni activity where, oh, you're buying something and you're acquiring and you're hoarding these saris?
So shopping is, let's be very clear. I don't want to make sure. Shopping is not a tamoguni activity. I'm not labeling any activity as tamoguni or rajoguni or satoguni. Okay. You can Netflix, you cannot. Okay. So if you have to cook, for example, you have to buy utensils. You will go and shop, right? So your example that you've given right now, right? And it is always good to specifically talk about specific examples, otherwise confusion will occur.
Yeah.
Right now, because I gave a random example of a generic way of shopping, now you will think all shopping is bad. That is not correct. Okay. If everything boils down to purpose and bhav. If your purpose and bhav is to use the resources Bhagwan Ji has given to redistribute, this is your way of redistributing the resources you have to somebody else who needs it more. And you don't want to give it to them as if they are beggars, right? You are buying something for them so that they have a right way of acquiring their living. That is a very satoguni activity. It's a very satoguni bhav, which makes the activity very satoguni. It is your bhav and your purpose that will bestow whether that particular activity is satoguni, rajoguni, or tamoguni. The same thing can become a very rajoguni activity when your purpose is, I like wearing this particular sari, is very beautiful and I would love to wear it, and that's the only reason why I am buying it. Okay, your way of buying a new sari is your way of supporting a particular family, and by doing it in a very right way so that you don't make the other person feel any less. You actually are supporting their art and you're supporting their family. Phenomenal. As a side effect, yeah, you are getting more saris to wear and you have so many more ways of looking beautiful. That's a side effect. That is not a reason why you did it. And that's the beauty. When you do satoguni activities, your side effects will eventually come back to benefit you. always, because you're part of that system. So you will end up having more saris to wear and you look more beautiful, amazing. But that's a side effect. The same thing can be a tamoguni activity when you're shopping something because, oh, somebody else had this and now I don't have it. I feel very jealous. Now I want to wear it and I want to show off. Tamoguni, same activity, same sari you buy, that same action is satoguni or rajoguni or tamoguni, depending
So
on
tamoguni
your.
activity here would be, you could have the same purpose, that I want to help the weavers. You go and tell someone in a store.
Yeah, that's another way of making it
that's-
tamoguni.
You go tell someone that, hey, I bought the sari for this purpose. They don't praise you. They in fact do the
That's
opposite,
another tamoguni.
right?
So there are
So then
hundreds of ways
that
to
would
make the
give,
same activity as tamoguni.
so let's be really clear. Activity is not tamoguni or whatever. It is the bhav. It is the experience that
Purpose
gets
and bhav.
created.
Yeah.
So you can think, yeah, but your example is a perfect example for a sataguni bhav for a regular activity like shopping. Visalakshi, you had a question as well.
No, same. I had what she asked, the same question. I have a passion.
You're also buying sarees from weavers?
Yes,
Huh?
yes.
You're also.
Yeah, but I might the in depth I'm going, why I'm buying, I'm keep on asking myself, and then I start realizing this one way of I'm helping them, because nowadays the weavers is very rare, because a lot of them is very rarely they are doing the weaving on their own, like on their hands, and then whatever they do hand stitching, I'm helping them, and the purpose is it's completely this the path. I'm not helping through the divine. I through my way. It's I'm doing that. So my purpose is completely changed now after.
Wonderful bhav. Wonderful bhav. I love that last line that you said, that I am not helping.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I just have the resources. I'm passing it on because Bhagwanji is giving me a bit more, so I will pass it on. Lovely. You have that bhav with every interaction, every transaction. You're already in Satagun. That's how selfless service, right? That's selfless service, as we read earlier.
Absolutely.
Should we do takeaways? They do have a 12 o'clock call. I think then we won't do takeaways. Then we'll just take this one.
So let's just do takeaways then. I think this was. Yeah, let's do takeaways. Who wants to go first?
I can say. So yeah, thank you first of all for this session, because it's getting so clear, and now I'm understanding that you have to basically understand that with what bhav you're doing the activity. The activity can result in any of the gunas being triggered depending on the bhav which you have. And initially, when you started speaking, I was thinking, oh, I've left all my tamoguni. I'm a rajoguni. That ego was cropping in. And then I was, as this Bhagyashri was actually discussing, so I was just doing, let me see how much activity. And tamogun and rajogun are almost at the same place, which means there's a lot of work to be done. And yeah, so that's kind of the graph which I found out, and thank you for that. I mean, it's like kind of now I'll understand and also be mindful of that. Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I go next? Okay. No, my biggest takeaway is that how mindlessly we are doing the things. And most of the time it's all mindless. And especially when we reacted first, it is definitely mindless activity. So last week I was noticing how many times I'm reacting, almost most of the time, especially with the children, because it's very easy to react to them. And because it just comes from complete mindless, and also it's a habit, a subconscious habit of reacting. So now what I'm trying to do is, when there is a reaction automatically coming up, take a pause. So to check why I'm doing this.
So amazing.
So it helps. So for example, yesterday my daughter was not getting up to go to the class in the morning. Oh, I'm tired. This first thing is, get up, you're just all right. Like, yesterday you slept. That is what it comes in the. So
Yeah.
then take a pause and check how to help her instead of me saying, okay, I paid for the class and you're still sleeping. Please get up and go. You're just completely all right. Why are you sleeping? So that really helped to change that kind of, that reacting. But I don't know how far for everything I can check. Once in a while, remember I check, take a pause. So I think
So out of curiosity, in that situation, how did you respond?
after taking a pause, for a moment, and I feel okay now. I'm about to tell her that okay, I have this I did my duty. I got up and made your breakfast. Get up and you just need to go in the taxi. That is how the reaction is going to come. Then out of that, like I said, okay, pause, and how I can help her. Then it changed a little bit. It brings that calmness inside. So you can tell, Antara, you had to finish because there's an exam which is coming up, and you have to go for the class. Then it will help you to finish it faster. And for a little bit, she said, oh, then she got up and get ready anyways. So both the ways, she's anyway going to get ready. But how I felt and make myself miserable and her also miserable, that pause helped a little differently. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great example. I think your pause also helped you remind her of her purpose in a calm way.
Huh.
Then making it defensive for her. That's great.
And that pause is the Satoguni pause.
Yeah.
That pause is when you brought the Satogun into the picture.
That pause comes after you have acquired the right knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's what all of us are doing in this class, right? There's awareness that everyone's talking about, the increased level of awareness in very transactional activities. That is a Satoguni pause that all of us are building.
And again, it's a very good example of saying that your very regular, everyday activity, which we do mindlessly, when done mindfully, will suddenly transform the experience of life for yourself and for everybody around you. Very mundane thing, just waking up a child. When we do it with that pause, with that mindfulness rather than mindlessly, with the awareness, will create, and this is the act of when you say you divinize your life, this is an example of that. We divinize our life by every small action being done with full mindfulness, with full awareness. And the calmness it will bring, the happiness and the peace it will bring inside of you and with everybody around you is going to be pretty big. Very nice.
You.
So
I think
what
I'll follow up. Okay.
Sorry, I was just saying that what Kavita said, that how can I help the child? That was a really good thought. I mean, I'm not a mother, but I have experienced the other side. Like maybe she's not getting up because she doesn't know how to. She doesn't have the skills. Maybe she's not understanding how to do it. She wants to do it, but she doesn't know how to do it. So yeah, I mean that's the thing. Not they don't do it just, I mean kids, they don't do something just because they want to do it, like, but they might not know, or they might not have the skills to how to do it. So yeah, when you said you should help her, so that's a really good thing when you said you help her how to do it.
So powerful. Bhagyashree, you want to continue with your takeaway from the class?
Yeah. So what you said, that being in Satogun will also not lead to self-realization is just a ladder. So yeah, but then we have to reach Satogun to then go further, right? So yeah, so the goal is to first be in Satogun always, and then after that we'll see. But yeah, but to label our all activities, whether we are doing it mindlessly or there's some purpose, or what is the bhav behind it. So since a few months I have kind of stopped doing things mindlessly. I mean, before doing anything, I think a lot whether why am I doing it? Why am I really doing it? But yeah, and then nowadays I'm thinking that why correct or not? Right? So yeah, I think I just keep observing and see what my purpose is, and yeah, whether it serves uh my goal or not.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my takeaway is whatever Satagun or Rajagun or Tamagun, but always the driving seat should be the Satagun action, like a Satagun should be in the driving seat. So but the purpose and bhav should be right. And then, yeah, what Kavita said, we have to pass for like that is difficult actually when the immediately the action is immediately it's coming out of the either through the so instead of reacting we have to respond. Instead of react all the things we have to just pause and respond to the situations through the purpose and bhav should be through the Satagun action.
Very true.
So I think one and only takeaway today, I mean, just to be mindful of, everything that that we do, because there's so many times when we are so mindless and, we just do things for the sake of doing it. And I wish this class had happened last week itself, because last week we had the Goa Fest in Bombay, and it was crazy with the amount of mindless conversations that, we were having. So yeah, I mean, I think what you said that, the path to self-realization is not about acquiring, but about giving up a lot of things. I think I think that list is a huge one. I just need to start ticking it off now.
Amazing.
Mindless conversation is a very it's a very fascinating thing. You
Right.
realize when you start, as we start progressing in the journey, we'll start getting more silent. And as you start getting more silent or you speak with purpose, you will realize how much drama people create in their lives just because of conversation.
I mean, I'm just on hindsight when I think about, so the sessions are good, but after 6, when the after parties and all the networking starts, I mean, you have to see the amount of, mindless conversations that has happened in the last 1 week and, where I've been part of. I mean, it's just amazing when I just look back and realize.
Amazing. Amazing.
Shall I go next? Yeah, for me the takeaway is that each of the gunas, I think we get stuck in a cycle. If you're like your purpose is in like bhav and purpose, as you said in sattva, selfless and righteous, then it continues in that. Then the actions follow, which are also similar, and it comes back to the same thing. And if you're stuck in rajas, you're stuck again. So and probably it's just breaking the cycle is required sometimes when awareness is required. So, and what I have from my experience is I get carried away by the company. So even though I'm mindful when I'm thinking about it, but when I'm around people, I just get carried away and I do a lot of mindless things. So I have to pull myself there and be aware of that. Exactly.
Fantastic.
Smita?
Yeah, I'll go now. So I think my takeaway and something that I would like to implement is more around taking a pause as I'm thinking about all the mindless things that I'm doing. And I have this, I can categorize it as something. I have this habit, like, in the family of 4, to constantly improvise other. I come from that space where, can you hear me?
Yes. Clearly.
Okay. So I constantly come from that space that be it my kids or my helper or my husband, I have to constantly say things to them like, we can do this like this, we have to do it like this, you can, this time you should read, this time. So, I feel I am doing it for others, but it is creating such a, like, irritation. So it's so mindless, even though I am coming from a good space and I'm trying to find like, how everybody can reach to a better uh, and how can they use their time in a more productive way, but I think it leads to a lot of irritation. So some can express, some can't express, some can just roll eyes. So I think that is
Yeah, we lost you.
something uh,
Yeah, I think you're breaking a fair bit now. We can't hear you at all, Smita.
sorry, I can't hear you guys. Yeah,
Yeah, now, yeah. I think the connection is not great.
yeah.
So
Uh,
I think, Smita, we got the gist of your takeaway, which is absolutely fantastic and it's relevant to every single person in this room. I think we all are. I definitely am. Uh, totally accusatory of like doing that myself. All of us, I somehow like all the mommies definitely would be doing this. So I think one of the key things that we as parents and as people in space of power have to be aware of is a massive, like, ghor tamoguni activity that we do almost on a daily basis. Ghor tamoguni. First of all, I think I'll invite everybody to know, and this is because I realized it after much, much later, right? After I read this, my first thought process when I read this chapter first time was, "Arey, yeah, totally Rajoguni. I'm like totally Rajoguni, right? That's what I used to think. Much more Nidhi Dhyasan and Swadhyay made me realize कि that's not true. बहुत घोर तमोगुण है, बहुत ज्यादा. Massive preponderance of tamogun in all our lives. And I'll invite you to observe that. जो रजोगुनी एक्टिविटी भी हमें दिखती है ना, it is actually driven by tamogun. Because most of our, and which is the relevant conversation we had today, one, we are doing most of the stuff in a mindless manner without knowing why we are doing it, and we are reacting most of our life. Most of the day we are reacting. These are ghor tamoguni activities. The third, like very ghor tamoguni activity that Shalini Didi and me had a conversation about, and she told me to be very aware of, is this that I'll share with you. Uh, the, the people that we have control over, our children, our helpers, people who are working for us, our employees, or our subordinates, right, of any kind, right? Yeah.
subordinate.
Poor victims like him, right? These people, we are very fast to उनके ऊपर गुस्सा नहीं होना चाहिए. Any kind of verbal violence we deliver on these people is the biggest path we can accrue. It's the most tamoguni activity because the only reason we shouted them, reacted them, behaved poorly with them without any restraint, without thinking, without pausing is because we have control over them and they cannot say anything back.
So to rephrase it, to rephrase this slightly better, you only ever express anger at people who are weaker than you.
Weaker than you.
And how
You
unfair
try
is
it
that?
once, yes. And
How
you
unfair
try
is that?
doing that once to somebody who's more powerful than you.
And
You never shout and scream at your own boss. तब तो हम लोग के बड़े pauses आ जाते हैं, है ना? तब तो बड़े आराम से pause आ जाता है. तब तो हम 10 बार सोचते हैं कि क्या बोलेंगे. You don't lose your cool in a board meeting, right? But you will lose your cool in front of your child or your helper easily. So shouting, screaming at people who are weaker than you, inflicting any kind of verbal or thought or physical violence on people who are weaker than you is the biggest tamoguni activity you can ever indulge in. And it brings huge amount of pap on you. Refrain from doing that from today.
So
anybody who's weaker than you, okay, ever.
So just to add to what Smita, you were sharing, right? Very powerful. When you feel this urge, right, to tell people what to do, how to do, etc., which is a very normal thing.
I'm called the Miss
There-
How to Manual. Miss How to Manual मेरा नाम रखा है ना.
Yeah.
So there are two things for you to become aware of. One, every time you want to try and control anybody else, their action and outcome, it's ego. Even if you're telling them, why aren't you reading the Gita? It is not a Satoguni practice. Bhagavan Krishna himself did not start speaking till 2.07. One
Correct.
entire chapter of the Gita, he was silent till
Yeah.
Arjun went to him.
Absolutely.
The second is, it is for you to become aware that, oh my God, I have this tendency to just be in so much, I'm not at peace. And it's for you to become aware of your own vasana, your own Rajuguni bhav, and for you to work on yourself. Those are the 2 points of awareness with which you work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There was a sharing that Kumar had done, I think, in class one day. He was like, he had a similar thing. When the kids were teenagers, he was trying to say, do this, do that, sign up for that. Why aren't you doing this? And then in his journey, he's like, Meghna and Meghna's his wife, they both said they're not going to do it. So he said for 6 months, there was a little bit of anxiety, newfound freedom. The kids were just like not going for classes, stopped doing classes. And then he said 6 months later, the kids started coming to them. Papa, can we do this? How do I do this? I don't think I'm doing this very well. So he said that relationship automatically transformed, where instead of us trying to tell them, they started coming to us because they're now old enough. They realize what they're not doing effectively or not effectively. And that space then creates us to hopefully in the future have conversations about everything.
Correct.
Right? So yeah, anyway, that was just a story that I remembered. But
Absolutely.
great sharing.
Wonderful, wonderful advice. I'll try and implement 1 week at a time and then see how it goes.
All right.
Okay, closing shlokas.
Thank you, everyone. Let's do the closing shlokas. Kakuli, will you do?
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्ण एव अवशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ ॐ ॐ
Thank you, Kakuli. Kakuli, in the last one, it is not Purna Eva Vashishyate, it is Purnam Eva Vashishyate. So when
Okay.
you say it together, it will automatically come out as Purnam Eva Vashishyate. You're missing that M in between.
Okay.
Purnam Eva Vashishyate. So it will become like Purnam Eva Vashishyate.
Okay.
Thank you, Narayan.